That time Rimuru got a daughter. By Asora09. The teddy bear incident. Rimuru's perspective. Bang. The door flew open, and from it, two figures emerged, a beautiful silver-haired girl, and a cute little girl with bright red hair. Darling, your dear and devoted wife Seal is back to receive her very well-deserved punishment. And the room sank into silence once again. Everybody was staring at Seal. Yeah, even Riley, who had just come in along with her. She had an expression on her face that showed pure, unfiltered confusion. Thank God she is pure enough to not understand. Something wrong. Seal looked bewildered as well, but for a completely different reason. She tilted her head curiously as she blinked repeatedly at me. Me, you idiot. We're supposed to be in a serious meeting. And more than that, what the hell are you saying in front of Riley? A vein appeared on my forehead. Darling. Cold sweat began running down Ciel's forehead. She looked to have a face that clearly read, I messed up. Don't, darling, me. Ciel, to horny jail. Now. Wah. Ciel had her eyes wide open in shock. Did she really not expect me to do anything about it? Foltia, take her away. Yes, my lord. Foltia materialized from within Shizusan's body and approached Ciel. Darlinggggggggggggg. With a face full of despair, Ciel started getting dragged away from the room. Really? Help Mama. She looked for one last source of salvation, but sadly, reality was cruel. Ooh, Mama is getting dragged away by Auntie Foltia. That was the only reaction she got from Riley. She was saying things that would normally be said with a surprised tone, but Riley was simply wearing a poker face and her voice was completely monotone. Even if she didn't understand what Ciel said, did she perhaps manage to grasp that her mama was causing trouble? Riley looked quite exasperated, to be honest. Really not you too? Ciel despaired. To be forsaken by her own daughter, it has to be quite the shock, that's for sure. Bye-bye mama. Raylasama began cutely waving her hand toward her dear mama who was on the brink of tears clutching to the floor for dear life. No. Those were the last words, or rather, screams Ciel left behind as she got dragged away out of sight. Seriously. I apologize for her. I turned toward the ogre chief and Benimaru, who were sitting opposite to me with bewildered faces. PFF'd, ha ha ha. Don't mind it, Rimuru. The next moment, they were both laughing their lungs out. That is quite the different mood when compared to the tension and seriousness of a few minutes ago. It seems that Ciel's performance was good for relaxing and dissipating the heavy atmosphere that was around previously. Performance. Did she, perhaps, do that scene because she noticed the heavy mood? No, maybe that is part of it, but deep inside I am quite sure she really did mean what she said about the punishment. That being said, even if her fetishes got mixed in between, Ciel did improve this meeting's condition. I really can't beat you, Ciel. Thanking her in my mind, I decided to push ahead with our discussion. So, as we were discussing before the interrupt to or well, I planned to, until I felt a tug on my sleeve. Needless to say, it was Riley, who was looking directly at me. Riley, are you okay? Yup. No, don't tilt your head as if you are confused, I am the confused one here, you know. I see. There was an awkward silence in which we both stood side by side looking at each other. Do you want to sit down? Riley nodded, and so I stood up to push back the chair beside me for her to sit on it. Yet, Riley didn't move, she just stood there, still staring into my eyes. Is it just me, or does she look a bit exasperated? Papa, you have to be more considerate of others' feelings. Mama said that too, that Papa is a bit dense. What the hell have you been telling her, Ciel? Then, really, what do you want me to do? HMPH. I am not telling you. Guess. Riley pouted and turned to face away from me. The damage I'm receiving is too big, help me. As if listening to my imaginary pleas, Shizusan, who had been sitting beside me the entire time, whispered into my ear, she wants you to carry her. Auntie Shizu. That's cheating. Riley turned to look at Shizusan while pouting and pointing at her with her index finger. In response, Shizusan raised her hands in the air and said, I'm sorry, in surrender. Regardless, now that I knew what I had to do, I gently picked up Riley from the floor and sat her on my lap. She was still pouting, but that only made her look more cute. Either way, Her pouting only lasted for a couple seconds, for a relaxed smile appeared on her face as she laid back on my chest. Anyway, back on topic. I turned to look at Benimaru and his father. As I was saying before the interruptions, in not too long, this forest will be attacked, and bang! And this seal enters with a bang. I turned toward the door in exasperation, and there, I found the face of someone who is starting to test the limits of my patience by this point. What are you doing here? You idiot. Stop causing a ruckus whenever you want. You, how cruel, darling, even though this seal had such a hard time knocking out Foltia in order to come back here with you. When paying close attention to Seal in the door, you could see Foltia's head peeking from the frame of the door. She was likely knocked outside the door, lying on the ground. Ciel's clothes aren't even wrinkled, so I doubt she had such a hard time, as she said, though. Foltiasen is supposed to be a prime spirit, and she managed to knock her out and not look tired at all. PP prime spirit. Like those who only appear in legends. There were some people muttering something in the room, including Shizusen, who now had dead eyes for some reason, but I decided to ignore them. I can't take care of everyone, okay. I am not babysitter Rimuru, okay. I only have one kid I have to take care of. I returned to look at the biggest troublechild in this room, who was still standing on the door while looking at me with an expression that very clearly said, praise me, praise me. I was about to say something, but Raylasama was quicker on the trigger. Mama. Her eyes showed pity. As if looking at someone that couldn't be helped no matter what you did. Really, don't look at Mama with those eyes, even Mama has feelings, why you know. Mama will get hurt, why you know. Mama Seal started losing power on her knees as she slowly fell to the ground. Well, I am pretty sure that was pretty more damaging than what I was going to say to her, anyway. Just sit down already, okay. I patted Reely's head as I looked at Seal and decided to just pardon her behavior. That's because I am very benevolent and my kindness is deeper than the sea, okay. It is definitely not because I just don't want to deal with her anymore, okay. Okie dokie. Seal closed the door behind her and approached the table. She stopped right beside me. She was staring longingly at Reely, who was on my lap. Sit on a chair. It wasn't me who said that, by the way. It was Raylichan, who perhaps thought that her throne was being threatened. This is my place. I will not share. She pouted her lips cutely and crossed her arms as she looked away. Her eyes met Shizusen, who had been looking dead ever since Seal reappeared, and so, Reely averted her gaze from her, only to lock eyes with Benimaru and his father, who were laughing depressedly while mumbling, prime spirit, over and over again. And so, is there anyone who's not looking dead? Reely gave up and buried her face in my chest while saying that. Poor Reely. She tried to look away to emphasize her point, but everywhere she landed her eyes on was too depressing. What about Mama? Seal was trying to converse with her dear daughter, but the only thing she received was a mocking tongue-out gesture from said daughter. Heart. You don't have a heart, I replied tiredly while looking at Seal, who was lying all out on the floor with her right hand over the part of her chest where the heart is supposed to go. But I mean, I am not wrong, you know. She is a slime, and slimes don't have hearts, after all. Yes, not right now. This Ciel's dearest husband and daughter gauged this as heart out with their cruel words, after Alouch. Ciel was starting to go into full drama actress mode, so it's better to stop her sooner than later with a well-deserved head chop, the specialty of this Rimurusan. I am starting to speak like Ciel. Sit down. On a chair. The second part of that sentence was for, well, you know. To make sure I am not misunderstood. Ciel looked like a dejected puppy as she sat down on a chair close to mine. Okay, as I was saying. I turned around to look if anyone was going to interrupt me once again, just to make sure, you know. Great, there's nobody. An army of orcs is going to invade the foe. Rimuru Tempest, ruler of Mons. Now what? A voice interrupted me again, and, well, I snapped. What can I say? I was pretty pissed off. Will anybody let me finish talking? Or will I just stay repeating myself over and over again? Hi, I am sorry. The one who cried out was the just arrived Trainizen, wearing her green aura typical of a dryad. She bowed her head repeatedly as she apologized. Treynisan, I know you're a dryad and supposed to be very important in this forest, but that's no justification for you to interrupt me as you please, alright? I was so mad I kind of forgot the entire thing about this being supposedly the first time I met her. I ended up blurting out her name without really noticing it. Huh, how do you know my Namhai? I am truly sorry. I apologize for my blunders from deep within my heart. As she began her sentence and I recovered a bit of my sanity, I noticed I had made a mistake, but before I could do anything about it, Seal-sama sent Trainizen her ice-cold glare and brought her into submission. My hubby here knows your name because that useless Lizarko cough I mean, Veldora SSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSS really doesn't like Veldora, and Mama really doesn't like Uncle Valora. Anyway, Seal. Nice save. 2C, so Veldora-sama told you about us, Veldora-sama. Trainaizen tilted her head curiously. It was at that moment that, as if fated to happen this way. Bang. Kuahahaha. The great storm dragon Veldora enters with a bang. Kuahahaha. A blonde man entered the scene. The room was completely silent. No, that's wrong. Seal was clutching her head with a despairing face as she mumbled. 3 made the same joke as that overgrown lizard. It was so big the shock from noticing that she even stopped referring to herself in third person. Really, just how much do you dislike Veldora? What's wrong? Dragon got your tongue. Kuahahaha. Leaving aside the fact that it was a terrible joke, everyone was now staring at Veldora. Even Really, who usually ran up to him just as he appeared while yelling, Uncle Valora, was just looking at him with a deadpan expression. After a few seconds, she turned to look at me. Really is glad Papa is normal, if not, Really would be gone by now. She looked both glad and sad at the same time. Really? Bufu. What's that supposed to mean? Really? Mama's crying, you know. While the weirdos of the Tempest family were going through a crisis, I took the chance to move forward with the conversation. We were not going to advance if I didn't do that, after all. Well, anyway, for anyone who does not know, this is my brother Veldora. You can make introductions later, alright. I sighed in exasperation. I really want this conversation to move forward. Benimaru and his father seemed bewildered at the mention of Veldora, but they ultimately hid their surprise or whatever and simply decided to listen. Trainaizen, Veldora, sit down, please. Both of the people in question did as I told, sitting down on nearby chairs. I thought Seal would say something about having Veldora sit on the floor or something like that, but she was still looking dead with her face stuck to the table. In not too long, this forest will be invaded by an army of orcs, or chested by a small group of scheming demon lords. Let's go. Nobody interrupted me. I tried to hide my smile the best I could as I watched the reaction of the people in the room. Demon lords, you say? The one to speak was Benimaru's father, who had a serious expression plastered on his face. But why are they focused on this forest, Rimuru don't know. Well, this forest has a lot of resources and the like, and now that everyone believes Veldora is gone, then there is no reason to abstain from invading it. I turned to look at Veldora, who was repeatedly blinking as if to prevent falling asleep. Seeing him like this, it is really hard to say that this old man's existence was the only thing preventing an invasion. It doesn't matter. If they are orcs, if they are demon lords, it doesn't matter. Benimaru stood up and slammed his fist on the table as if to create emphasis on his point. It is just a matter of crushing them all. Now that I think about it, he was quick when it came to going into battle in the original timeline. He did try to kill me the first time we met, after all. Well, that had much more complicated circumstances, though, so I may be wrong. Sit down. Benimaru's father crossed his arms and eyes and he ordered his son. He looked quite imposing, but well, to me, having interacted with the people at the top of the food chain multiple times, it was nothing but a brief breeze. Papa, he looks so cool. It seems Really is the same as me. I mean, yeah, she has seen Seal when she is in demon mode, after all. Yufufu, darling, are you perhaps thinking something rude right now? No, what are you talking about? Other than that, shouldn't you be worrying about telling the same joke as Veldora or something like that? Og. After our brief conversation through thought communication, Seal grabbed her head and started cringing in her seat. Mama lost it. Really pointed toward her mama with her finger as she eyed her with pitying eyes. Something wrong. Veldora stood up from his chair in shock, or well, it would be more appropriately that he woke up from the noise. His eyes wandered around the room until they stopped at Seal, who was staring back at him. Their eyes met. "You damn lizard. Wah. Bufoo. And Seal stood up from her chair in a fraction of a second and charged at Veldora, going through the wall into the outside. Rimuru. Through the newly opened hole in the wall, the battle cries of both of them could be heard. By the sound of the several skill names being spoken and the numerous clashing sounds that could be heard, they really were fighting. That said, it wasn't as if Seal was fighting seriously. If that wasn't the case, Veldora's screams would be heard anymore. While I was thinking that, I felt a tug on my shirt, causing me to turn my gaze toward my daughter in my lap. Papa really has to go. If not, Mama will kill Uncle Velora. Really jumped down from my lap and turned to look directly at me while combat noises came from outside. Papa really will wait at Valhalla. Looking as if she was a soldier about to go to war, really turned around and began marching toward the hole in the wall. By the way, she knew what Valhalla was because of the bedtime stories I tell her every night. Sometimes there are child stories, and others there are fairy tales or myths. She learned that world from the Norse myths I told her about a week or so ago. Such determination. How admirable. But, I really can't allow my daughter to go to Valhalla, you know. I stood up and took her into my arms to stop her. Really looked surprised for a moment, but she instantly snuggled in my chest. I went outside while carrying her, where I was met with chaos. In the sky, there were several spells and skills flying about, with Seal and Veldora exchanging punches in the midst of them. A great crater had formed on the ground below the battle. I heard several gasps behind me, and when I turned around, I could see Benimaru, his father, and Trainaizen all gasping in awe. SSO, he really was the storm dragon. I ignored Benimaru's comments and snapped my fingers, generating a null barrier around the area of the fight. Benimaru and the rest stood in shock. Even Shizusan was frozen, as it was the first time she saw this type of special barrier. Papa has to go, okay. But I will be right back. Do your best, Papa. Really nodded and patted my head as if to encourage me. Is it really necessary for me to go? I mean, Veldora will probably end up dying, but isn't that a small sacrifice when compared to spending time with Really? Veldora can be revived later through the Soul Corridor after all. Papa, Really will be okay. Perhaps seeing through my uneasiness, Really encouraged me even further and showed me her brightest smile. Okay, Papa will be right back. Leaving those words behind, I launched into the air and in less than a dozen seconds, I delivered each one of them a karate chop to the neck, effectively knocking them out without them even having time to react. If Seal hadn't been so focused on Veldora, she might have been able to respond, but well, that wasn't the case, so that's good. I caught both of them while they were falling down and gently laid them on the floor. I left them there and went back with Really, who was smiling at me while waving her small hand. Her pair of twintails was being moved back and forth by the artificial wind generated by that null barrier. Really? Papa is back. Welcome back, Papa. Really ran and jumped at me. I effectively caught her in the air and patted her head. In the meantime, I dispelled that null barrier and called Rigard to take care of Seal and Veldora, who were sleeping peacefully. Okay, let's get back to the meeting. I began walking back into the hole in the wall, but I soon noticed the lack of footsteps in my surroundings. I turned around and saw everyone staring at me and Really without moving an inch. No, not only that, but they weren't even blinking. What's wrong? I asked worriedly. What's wrong? It seems the required meeting regarding the orcs will have to wait a bit more. Hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond. Third person's perspective. The location is a castle. A castle located in the beautiful city of Lubelius. Inside said castle, there was a beautiful woman with silver hair sitting on a throne-like thing. She possessed an eye-opening beauty and elegance that most people of the world could only wish for. That said, her beautiful skin and facial features, and her silky silver hair was not the most distinguishing aspect about her. That award went to her peculiar eyes, which were of different colors. The left was as blue as a sapphire, carrying a sense of serenity. The right eye, on the other hand, was as red as fire, which invoked feelings of excitement and energy on whoever saw it. She was none other than the Queen of Nightmares herself, one of the demon lords who rule over the world, and the true ruler of the Holy Empire of Lubelius, Luminous Valentine. She was not doing much more than sitting on that marvelous throne, with one hand holding her chin and her legs crossed. Luminusama. A couple of seconds later, a man arrived. He had blonde hair, and just as he entered the room, he entered a kneeling gesture in respect to the person sitting on the throne. What is it, Louis? Luminous looked down on him from her seat while sounding tired. He was none other than the Pope Emperor of the Holy Empire of Lubelius, Louis Valentine. He was the one who ruled the country on the surface on behalf of Luminous. We were investigating the Jura forest as you ordered, and just a few minutes ago, a huge amount of magicules clashed with one another. Louis didn't raise his head an inch while he delivered his report to his queen. Ever since Veldora's disappearance, Luminous had asked Louis and Roy to investigate whatever occurred in the Jura forest. It was a matter of high relevance to her, as it had much to do with a certain winged lizard she abhorred so much. A large amount of magicules, you say? Luminous looked dubious as she entered a thinking posture, leaning forward on her seat. Affirmative. It seemed as if there was a large-scale battle going on. I see. Luminous sank into deep thought as she considered the possibilities. It could have been Veldora himself signaling the beginning of another rampage as in the past. It could have also been a random explosion of magicules without any particular reason, although that seemed extremely unlikely. Lastly, it could also be the other demon lords finally making their move on the forest after Veldora's disappearance. Yeah, that's most likely it. I have heard Clayman has been planning something along with Milam Nava and some other demon lords. Luminous would have never imagined that the source of those magicules was in fact a domestic dispute between a certain silver-haired woman and her brother-in-law. I guess I will have to go pay Clayman a visit, then. Luminous stood up from her seat and began walking forward, stepping on the crimson-red carpet that went all the way from the throne to the door. Louis, I will be out for a few days. Make all of the arrangements needed. I understand, my queen. Please proceed with care out there. Your concern is uncalled for. Luminous completely dismissed her retainer's concern as she walked past him and left the room. Now, let's see what you have to offer, Jura Forest.